Okay, so welcome to this episode of the Martial Art Business Growth Network podcast. We've had an update and a refresh, and I'm excited to share some more knowledge with you guys. Now, today's episode is about a topic that I'm very passionate about for reasons you'll find out later on, and you'll find out more about that in a second. It's building a strong instructor team. Specifically, in this episode, I want to talk about where do you start to build a strong instructor team, because it's important, right? So it's the most important aspect of scaling any martial arts school, because you can have 10 million students, but if you haven't got enough instructors to look after and nurture and teach those students at a decent level, then you're going to lose reputation, you're not going to be able to scale, and you're going to start losing sleep. And it's the backbone of every martial arts school, every decent martial arts school. So whether you've been thinking about adding instructors to your school or you're already ready to take the next step, this episode is definitely for you. Now, my journey in martial arts started off a long time ago, decades ago. And I very, very, very quickly found that I needed to get help when running my martial arts school. Just like everybody else probably watching this, I was a one-man band teaching out of a school. It was a church hall to start off with. And things were fine. Things were okay when I had around 20 students. But then when you get to like the 40 and the 50, and then you have new students coming in. And by the way, at that time, I had everybody. I didn't know any better. I had everybody in the same class. So if you were 8 years old, or if you were 80, you were in the same class. If you were black belt, well, didn't have black belts then. If you were higher grade and experienced, and you were just starting 1 week, all in one class, just put everyone together. So I had the problems of trying to accommodate new people, advanced students and beginners all in the same class. I didn't really sign people up then. It was pay as you go. Yeah, that's how long ago it was. It was, paying students used to pay per session. I used to have my little money box at the side with like lots of change in there and everything. That would waste about half an hour before class trying to get everyone's change. But yeah, going back to what we were saying, I had to get some kind of help. And initially it was just friends, just like friends that trained martial arts with me came down and helped. My girlfriend at the time, who is now my wife, she was a martial artist. Later on, she started helping as well and teaching some classes. And it was very informal. So years going on, and then we have lots of like volunteer helpers, and none of these guys were paid. I moved to my first full-time center. So I'd gone from a small center, a small church hall. We moved on to like school halls, and then I don't know how many I had. I think 6 or 7 different locations around the West Midlands that I used to teach on different days, just like lots of people still do. So I got fed up with doing that, and I got a unit, a proper unit, only a small unit for the first one. And that's when it started to get real, because coping with 70, 80 members spread across different locations meant that I only really dealt with, say, 20 or 30 a night or something. It wasn't that much of a big deal. But now in the full-time center, I had structured classes, proper class times, and structured curriculums. And these had to be delivered properly, because that's when I started introducing gradings and everything that I was supposed to have done. Then I got my first proper instructor. His name was Mark. He started helping out and doing classes. He was a black belt, one of my first black belts. And his teaching was good, but there was lots of like discrepancies. Like I'd see him after class and say, the way you taught that wasn't really the way that combination or technique should be taught, or you missed out this detail, or when you're correcting, you missed that person at the back altogether. You didn't even see that they were picking their nose when they're supposed to do a front kick or whatever. There were lots of different things. So I found myself constantly mentoring him and then helping him, teaching him how to teach. To be fair to him, he'd been thrown in at the deep end, and he knew martial arts, a brilliant martial artist. But there's a very big difference between being a good martial artist and being a black belt and being a good instructor. I think they're two completely separate things. You can be good at one and rubbish at the other, believe it or not. So that's when I first started introducing instructor training program into my schools, and we're talking 20 years ago. And that evolved over the years, and I'm so glad that I took the time out to do that, and it's evolved to something that's amazing. You'll find out later on about that. That has made it developing instructors just like autopilot. It's so cool. Now we're going to, like I said today, we're going to identify what needs to be done to get started. How do you get started in it? So we'll cover where to start, how to identify the right people, and how to set them up for success. So let's get straight into it. So the first thing is identify the need for an instructor team, right? Why build an instructor team? So if you're running a martial arts school and you're finding you're finishing your classes and you're stressed and you feel burnt out because you're teaching a class, but then you get pulled one way to deal with one problem, and then at the same time you can see another problem happening, and you feel like you're just being reactive, and you finish the class and it's a relief that the class is finished. That's a massive indicator that you need to have a team. Teaching classes, when done properly with the right amount of team members, can be fun, and it should be fun. And the way that the class makes you feel determines how you show up as an individual for your students. So if you're stressed, believe it or not, you're going to show that to your students, your members, and they're going to feel it. It's not going to feel like they're having a great experience. It's going to take away from their experience. The next thing is, if you're finding that you can't switch off outside of classes because of constantly having to work on different things, like students contacting you for different things, that's another indicator that maybe you need to start building some kind of team to support the whole part of your school, of developing a team, right, of running your school. Now, your retention, if you're looking at your student numbers and each month you're losing students, then that's another massive indicator. Students leave for so many reasons, but the bottom line is that we've dropped the ball some way, shape, or form. It could be that we made a promise when they signed up that we're going to help them to achieve ABC, but when it comes to it, that hasn't happened. It might be a case of that something has happened in the class or in around the class that we didn't notice, or they're just bored because the standard of the teaching isn't great. And like I said before, that could be because we've taken our eye off the ball. We've got complacent. Maybe we're stressed. Maybe we're teaching our class, but while we're teaching our class, we're thinking about the next class, thinking about the intro we're going to sign up at the end, thinking about all the admin we've got to do. It's not great. So these are some of the things that indicate that you need to get a team together. And if you plan on expanding and scaling your martial art business to whatever you deem as the next level, that's an individual thing, then you can't do it without a team. You can't do it all yourself. You need to think as well that what would happen to your martial arts school if you were ill? Would you have to close down the school for the night? Are you one of those instructors at the moment that you have to send a message, or you put a message on Facebook for everyone to see, sorry guys, class is cancelled tonight, not feeling well? It's not professional. People remember these things. And if there are other schools in your area that are more professional with more instructors and they do not close at any point because they have enough staff, then people are going to go to them because their monthly fee means something to them. They're spending their hard-earned cash to get a service, and we have a duty of care to deliver that service at a decent level. Another indicator is, like, I see a lot of martial arts schools talking about closing down over the summer, and I think it's crazy. Now, don't get me wrong, I understand why some schools close down over the summer. It may be because if you're a solo instructor, you need a break just like everybody else. I get it. I understand. And also, if you're like hiring halls, then if the numbers are dropping because you're not putting things in place beforehand to make sure that your summer retention is half decent, then having one or two students turning up for class can maybe do more harm than good. I get it. But more often than not, the reason why people are closing is because it's all on you. You are your business. And if you are your business and it can't operate without you, you haven't got a business, you've actually got a job, unfortunately. And you work for yourself in a different manner than working for yourself, if that makes sense, which isn't great. You need to make sure that your business is self-sufficient and can run without you. Now, one of the common mistakes that instructors make is they wait too long to start building their team. They end up getting overwhelmed with teaching and admin work, and then it's kind of a desperation move. And they start grabbing people. It's like, oh, that person's a black belt, so they can teach. And we've already discussed that it's very different. Being a good instructor is very, very different to being a black belt. They're two separate things. One mistake I made was my first instructor team that I had when I had quite a few of them. I had to think about 6 or something. They were all my fighters. So these were guys that are competing all over the world. I'm going to like different competitions in Italy and Germany and everything. Every year I used to go to world championships. They were good martial artists. They were terrible instructors though. Why? Because they were selfish. They were about themselves. They were all about what they could get from the class, what they needed. And it was only after a knee-jerk reaction, like looking over, we had 2 floors in our dojo, looking over the top and seeing a couple of the instructors sitting there having a chat while sat down on a punch bag. Well, I had a class of about 30 adult kickboxers, and I'm upstairs training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And it's like, you guys are paid to teach, and you sat down having a chat. And that was just one of many, many, many different things. So I actually closed down that school, had a meeting with the instructors and said, listen, I'm taking over the class again. I'm starting again. All the students are moving to this location. And the layout of this location was just all on one floor and everything. I was like, and then you guys, if you want to be like carry on being instructors and stuff, then you need to start training on a regular basis, because they weren't. And you need to do my instructor training program regular basis, because at that time, sometimes they turn up on the monthly training, sometimes I went, and I was too relaxed with it. And that was my cutoff point for not again, it's not happening anymore. And that was when everything just went from, I mean, it was good anyway at that point, but that's when it went this way. Sometimes you have to get rid of the bad, but it was my fault, not their fault. I recruited the instructors incorrectly. It was more a case of, oh, you're a good fighter, you're a black belt, fancy teaching a class, I'll pay this, blah, blah, blah. Like, yeah, okay then. Wasn't great. So the next mistake that I see instructors make, mistake that I saw myself make as a younger instructor, and the first lot of instructors, was they focused just on technical skills and not leadership potential. Like I said, those guys I took on my first line of instructors, they were good technically, but they couldn't communicate. They didn't care about other people. So the next thing that I think that it's important for you to focus on, and one of the things that I did before that transition of closing that school down and moving to the other school and getting rid of the instructors and stuff, was I clarified my vision, my instructor vision. So I need to ask myself, like, what do I want from an instructor team? Do I need assistants as well? Do I need full-time instructors, or do I need a mix? That helped me to kind of define what a successful instructor looks like within my school, beyond just martial arts skills. So I was talking about like leadership and thinking about leadership, their communication style, and their ability to kind of mentor students. So because I took that viewpoint and that pathway, it meant that I sought instructors that had some kind of life experience or some kind of emotional intelligence and understanding and empathy, which is why my instructors, in my opinion, are so good right now. It's because they understand people. So if you've got somebody that's like morbidly obese, can only kick knee height, they're not just left at the back of the class. They might have been like years and years ago in the very, very beginning, and just left to it and kind of like written off as oh, they'll never make it. My instructors now nurture them, encourage them, help them, and guide them just as much as everyone, because each student is important, and obviously retention improves and everything. You also need to think about taking on the right people that they have a culture of like personal development as well, and taking on board the opportunity that you've given to them. They need to understand the whole student journey and the pathway that a student needs to take to get from a complete beginner to becoming a black belt and beyond. And if they appreciate that, then they'll recognize all the stumbling blocks and issues and problems that can come from just being a student, and empathize with them along the way and guide people. Because that's what instructors are, aren't they? That's what we want. We want people to guide students through, not push. That's an old school mentality. If you push students, guess what's going to happen? They're going to eventually push back or walk away. The old school method of bullying students to get better and boot camp, it's not the way forward. People have changed. Times have changed. So what about recruiting students? How do you recruit them? Recruiting instructors, sorry. Well, you could hire externally. There's nothing wrong with that. I've done that in the past. It's worked out well in some instances, and it's worked out badly in other instances. But your best students come from internally, from your student body. Why? Simply because your students understand your culture. They understand the way you do things, understand your curriculum. They understand you, and hopefully they'll understand the bigger vision that you've created for your whole martial arts school. They'll be committed, they'll be passionate, and they should have the communication skills required because they see and hear how you and the other instructors that you've brought through correctly and taught, how they communicate. So they just mimic and they follow suit. So I found that when I used to be an instructor that taught fighters, that's all I wanted to teach because I was a fighter. That's how they taught, boot camp style. Did it get results? Yeah, it did. To a small percentage, I could take it. But then I evolved, I changed, I grew, and my instructors followed suit. So you got to lead by example. So your student body is probably the best place to get your students from. Now, the next thing that I know you're going to be asking is like, how do you approach someone and how do you get a student from being an student to being an instructor? Like, it's a big jump, isn't it? Like, what do? Do you go up to somebody and say, hey, do you want to teach classes? In the olden days, maybe. But for me, the way that I do it is, first of all, I observe my students' overall communication on and off the mats. I observe their overall attitude and their dedication, and as well their technical ability. It's important. And then we have open days and things that we do for our martial art instructor university program that we run, which you'll find out a little bit more about. And on those discovery days, they'll come down, those that are interested, will find out about the bigger vision, find out about the instructor program. They'll find out that they're not just going to join the program and get thrown in front of a class. They're going to be taught about communication, personal development, instructorship, business side of martial arts, and everything that they need to excel. And then it's shown to them the opportunities that are there for them and the pathways and the options they've got. Then they're given the choice whether they want to be part of that program or not, and then they train to become an instructor. They don't jump from being a student to an instructor. They jump from a student to being a trainee instructor, where they're not on the mat yet, to being an assistant, to being an instructor, and beyond. And you got instructor levels and everything. And I find that that's the best way to develop a team of instructors. Now, when you run your open day, you're not going to get, if you just advertise it like you do a seminar or workshop, you're not going to get that many people coming forward, simply because most students are thinking, it's not for me, I'm not good enough to be an instructor. And they're right, they're not good enough to be an instructor. The whole point is you need to seed with each individual that have got the skill sets that you have recognized would lend itself to becoming a good instructor by talking to the students, saying, you know what, you've got some good skills. This is a tip from Dave Colvars, by the way, where he said, just go up to that white belt and just say, you know what, you're doing really well. You'd make an excellent instructor someday. That's all you need to do. And I took that on board years ago. So thank you, Mr. Carvaz, if you're watching this. And that one little seed grows over the years. It's always in the back of their mind. And those are people that will take that step. There's a certain way of marketing it as well. Now, not everyone that comes to the open day will join. And there's a special way of doing that open day, because you want to disqualify people that aren't suitable, as well as qualify people that are suitable. That's another talk another day. So once you've enrolled them on, what do you do with them then? How do you get them from being in that program? What do you do in that program to get them to be fully fledged instructors? Well, you need to run your instructor program. Like, as you said, I've got the Martial Art Instructor University 2.0, which is a done-for-you program. Literally turn up, run the modules, and then follow along with your team each month. And then they apply the knowledge and then work through everything. You'll get some more details about that on somewhere on this video, or if you're watching it, there'll be a link to follow through. But you can go to MAinstructor.university to find out more. That's MAinstructor.university. So as you're training instructors, you become their mentor, you become their guide, and then you need to set the expectations and accountability. It's not a case of they do the course and then throw them in, but once they're ready, they need to shadow you. So while you're teaching, they're literally stood next to you, and then they're not doing much for a long time until they develop the confidence and understanding of what to do. And it might be a case of, if you have music in your academy, it might be they just operate the music and they're standing there just in the background, just shadowing. Then you gradually bring them into it. So it might be that a new white belt's come in, and say that we've got a training instructor called Dave, and he's not experienced, but he's on the program for 4 months now. It's like, okay, Dave, can you just work with this new person, please? You know the drills that we're doing. Just go through basics, go through it slowly, break it down, and utilize the stuff that we've done in the training. So now you've got somebody that you can trust, practicing their skills of communication and nurturing in a one-on-one environment while a class is going on, with a complete novice that isn't going to judge them and doesn't know if they've messed up. So if Dave demonstrates a jab cross combination like this, that new student isn't going to know. So it's not a massive big deal. It's not great, don't get me wrong, but it's not a massive big deal. And what does it do for Dave? It builds his confidence. And that nurturing of the one person turns into taking maybe a small group of white belts, turns into just taking some beginners for 15 minutes of a class, turns into taking a beginner class with supervision from the main instructor, turns into you running the class as a paid instructor. Do you see the steps? Now, the problems you're going to face with this are you can have instructor turnover, because what people say and what people do are two different things. So I'm going to give you some of the things you need to look out for. So people that say, yeah, I'd love to be an instructor. It's usually the loudest people at the beginning that turn out to be the ones that don't really make it. They're all talk. But you need to nurture it. So you need to get some kind of commitment from them. You're going to get resistance to feedback. Once they start getting more confident, you give them feedback on how they should be doing things or shouldn't, or tweak the way that they're teaching. And you'll get some that'll say, oh, yeah, but blah, 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 blah. When they say but, that means I haven't listened to anything that you've said previously, unfortunately. So you've got to nurture them and guide them to the answer instead of telling them. And then there's the issue of instructors developing their own teaching style, which is good, but I think they can develop their own teaching style a little bit too early sometimes. I think there's a period of time where instructors should develop their own, training instructors should develop their own teaching style after they've gone through a period of doing it exactly the way that the school does it, following the school's culture, following your culture in the way that you'd like it done. Not everything, because everyone's going to have their own likes and dislikes. But if you've got for instance, if you'll have your class you teach like kickboxing, it's energetic, and then you have like music blasting in the background, and you have energetic drills, and you almost have like warm up and then a stretch, and then you have like a 60-second water break, and then you do pad work, and then you do technical aspects, so you finish off with a good game, or a competition or something like that at the end, then their way, they think that they know better, so they turn the music off and then they just do line work without a warm up and a stretch, and then they finish off with sparring, full on sparring. It's not the way that you do things. So you need to keep an eye on people that will try and enforce their own way of doing things. After a while, they can start bringing their own flavor, but once they've demonstrated that they understand the ethos and the culture of the school. And the next thing is like ensure the instructors have a pathway for growth. Make sure there's something for them to move on to. Just like the grading system that you have, nobody wants to train as a white belt to stay a white belt forever. There has to be some kind of progress. It could be levels, it could be linked in with your downgrades. There's so many different ways you could do it. And then the last thing I'd say is share the vision. Make sure that there is a vision for your business, a vision for your school, and a vision for every single person that steps onto an instructor training program. If they can see themselves in the future in that vision, they'll stay with you long term. Otherwise, it just turns into the same thing over and over again. Turn up, teach, go home. And that's when other things will take their interest. Like I prefer to be at home watching Emmerdale with my other half. So you've got to share that bigger vision. It gives them a why. So hopefully that's been useful to you, to give you the first stepping stones and a little bit of an overview of how to build an instructor team. I'm going to do a little bit of a series of this. I'm going to do a few podcasts around building an instructor team on specific areas to try and help you guys. It seems to be a massive, massive thing. Without an instructor team, you got to remember your school is only as strong as a team. You got to invest in the right people and you'll see your school and yourself thrive. So you've got to make sure you put the effort in. Now, if you're ready to start building your own instructor team and you want a program that's done for you, where you can literally plug it in, we've got an amazing program that all my clients already use. And because of using that program, a few of them have gone on to open multiple full-time locations because of this training. It's called the Martial Arts Instructor University, literally a plug-and-play university. If you want to find out more about that program, then just simply go to mainstructor.university and just check it out. You get all the details there. Thank you for your time. Hope you've got a lot from the podcast, and I will speak to you on the next one. Take care, and I'll see you soon.